guys, welcome to my channel Creative and Expressive. My name is Amy and today I'm so excited to show you how I made this giant 18-inch Easter Bunny gnome using Dollar Tree items. If you want to see how I made this guy, please stick around. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing, and if you have already subscribed, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Now let's get started. Okay, so first we're going to start with this baby blanket, this car chamois, and this egg dye kit from the Dollar Tree. And so I thought it would be fun to dye my fabrics using Easter egg dye since we're making an Easter egg bunny. So I'm taking the blue tablet and I'm just mixing it as per the instructions on the egg dye kit. But the tablet wasn't disintegrating like they should. So I was having a little trouble with that. So I'm smashing it up with the spoon. And then also I can't really find any real instructions on how to dye fabric with Easter egg dye. So I'm just kind of making up my own instructions. So I am combining the Easter egg dye kit instructions with instructions that I've used before from the RIT dye to dye fabric. So I have a pot of simmering water and I poured the dye in it. I ended up using 2 of the blue Easter egg dye tablets. And then I just put my baby blanket into the water. And after a while, I noticed it didn't seem like it was changing color at all. So then I go into my cupboard and I find some AmeriColor gel food coloring in the color royal blue. And I mix that up with some water. And then I add that to my pot as well to try to get it to actually change the color of the blanket. So that's what I'm doing now. And so first I constantly stir it for 10 minutes and then I let it simmer for 20 minutes and then I rinse it out. And now I am going with that car chamois and I was trying to dye it with the pink Easter egg dye tablet, but that was not working at all. So then I end up using this gel food coloring that I got from Hobby Lobby. First, I go in with a purple violet color and I mix it with the vinegar and water and it looked like it was really blue. So I was trying to go for a purple color. So then I get this color fuchsia and I mix that with a little bit of the violet to try to get a purple color. So then I pour that into the water. And then I get my little car chamois and put it in there. And it looks purple. So that's what I was going for. I was going for a purple color. So I'm like, oh, great, it's purple. But then when I rinse it out after it was all done, it turns pink. So I guess we are going with pink. And now I'm taking this Christmas ornament. It's just an old Christmas ornament that I had in my house already. And I'm painting it with white chalk paint. And then I'm going in with like a, I don't know, peach color and painting it with the peach color. And then I'm going to put a coat of Mod Podge on it to protect it from getting scratched. And now I have this 18-inch wire wreath form, cone wire wreath form from the Dollar Tree. And then I have my baby blanket and I'm just hot gluing in a random spot. I'm working from the corner of the baby blanket and I just am gluing the blanket to the wire form. And now I'm just slowly wrapping it from corner to corner, trying to keep it tight and just gluing where I think it needs to be glued so it'll stay on there good. So I'm just pulling it tight and I'm just rolling it in this baby blanket. So I just wrap the entire thing around until I get to the other corner of the blanket. And then I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to glue that corner down to the rest of the blanket. And now I'm just going to take that, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Now I'm just going to take that excess part of the baby blanket, I'm just going to tuck it inside of the cone. And then since you can still see the wires from the form, we're going to use a second baby blanket. This is the blanket that I dyed. You can slightly see a difference in color, just slightly, but there's a little bit of a difference there. So I'm just gluing the corner of this baby blanket onto the previous baby blanket. And then we're just going to wrap this one around. Now with this one, I don't want to have that corner showing, so I'm going to cut off that corner, cut like a straight line, or as straight as I can get, which I'm doing here. Just cutting off that excess blanket. And then I'm going to fold over that unfinished edge. And then we're going to put some hot glue along the fold. And then we're going to glue it to the rest of the cone. So I'm just gluing all along the edge here. And then I'm going to burn myself here in a second. There we go. That's why you should be wearing those finger protectors, so you don't burn yourself like I just did. Now I'm just tucking in that extra blanket into the end. And then there's pieces that were loose, so I'm just folding them over a little bit more and gluing them down so it's nice and tight. And now I have this piece of felt. It's not exactly the same color, but close. And I'm just putting glue along the bottom of that cone and then pressing it against the felt until the whole thing is covered in glue and stuck down to the felt. And then we're just going to cut off that excess felt. And that's just so we have a nice finished bottom on our gnome. And now we're going with that car chamois that's pink now. And I'm going to just take my ruler and go diagonally across it after I fold it in half. And then we're just going to cut off so that it's a triangle shape. And then we're just going to glue our edges together. Not the bottom, just the diagonal side edge. Leave the bottom open. So you just glue all along the edge and press it down. And now we're going to turn it inside out. And we have a hat. And now I got these bunny ears, this bunny headband from the Dollar Tree. And we're just going to take the fur off of the headband part. And then we're going to snap the ears off the headband because we don't need the headband. And now I'm just going to put a little bit of glue inside the bottom of the ear so that we can close it. And now I made this little template. It says cut 2 for the feet, but it's actually cut 4. Don't cut 2, cut 4. Not 4 of the paper, but 4 out of fabric. You'll see. But I made the foot, and then I have a little foot pad, and I have the little toes. And so I put the foot onto another piece of car chamois that I had that I left white. And I'm going to pin it to the car chamois. And then we're not going to cut right along the edge of the template. We're going to cut about 1/4 of an inch away. or so. I'm just eyeballing it. Then you want to cut 4 of these. So then I'm pinning this one, doing another piece of the car chamois, and cutting that out. And now I'm cutting out the little foot pads and the toes out of some pink felt. You cut 2 foot pads and 6 toes. Now I'm just gonna hand sew on the pieces of felt to the foot. I'm just doing a basic back stitch. You push the needle down through the back, and then when you come back up, you're a little bit of ways from your previous stitch, and then when you go back down, you connect with the stitch that's already on there so that they're all connected. It's really hard for me to describe how to do this. It would be better if you just looked up back stitch. It's pretty easy to do. You see, I'm pushing up through the back, and then I go back to the previous stitch and hook them together. And now to tie it off, you just push your needle under a piece of the thread that's on there, and then it makes a loop, and then you put your thread through that loop and pull it tight, and it ties a knot. And I do this 3 times to make sure it's secure. That's really confusing. You should just look up how to do backstitch, because I don't think I described it well at all. Okay, so now I'm going to take this completed little front of my foot, and I am putting my little template on here, and I'm going to cut off the excess chamois here, and I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew it, which if I could do it again, I would just hot glue around the edge of the foot, because it was really hard to see the stitches because the fabric was so shaggy. So if you're not really good with the sewing machine, I suggest you just hot glue around the edge and leave a space open at the bottom of the foot so that you can turn the fabric inside out. So now I have it all sewn with my sewing machine, which was kind of a pain in the butt to do. Just hot glue it. And now I'm turning it right side out and just pushing out all the toes. And then I'm taking some batting, polyfill, I don't know. And I'm stuffing the little foot. And then now I'm going to just hand stitch that open edge together. I just fold under the fabric a little bit, and then I'm just gonna stitch that closed. You could also just put a line of hot glue along there and press it together too. That would also work. So I'm just trying to keep the fabric folded under and just sewing this closed. And then you get to the end and you put the needle under one of your stitches that's already on there. It makes a loop. Then you put the string through the loop, pull a knot, do it like 3 times. So now I'm just taking some more embroidery thread. I'm going about a 1/2 inch down in between the toes. And I'm going to push it through the back and then go around the top and then go back down through the back. And it just forms the toes more. And I do that about 3 times. I hope you can see what I'm doing, because it's really hard for me to describe how to sew. And then when I'm done, I just put my needle underneath the thread, form a loop, then put the needle through that loop and pull tight a knot. And then I do that about 3 times so it's secure. And then I'm doing the other side for the other toe. And now I have 2 feet. And now I'm just showing you all of my mess ups. At first I tried hot gluing it and I forgot to leave a space open so I could turn it inside out. And then I cut right along the edge of that template, and it turned out really small. And then this one I used the pink chamois on it, and I just thought the toes and the foot pad was way too light. So it was just all trial and error, guys. So now I just took my little, that's about a 5.5 inch circle, and I just used it to trace the circle onto the car chamois. And now I'm cutting it out. And then I'm going to take, I like to, when I use embroidery thread, I like to use half the strands. But don't do this part right here because you'll see why in a second. Just leave all 6 strands because there's 6 strands. I like to use 3 strands usually, but just use all 6 strands. You'll see why. I think it's called a whip stitch. You're just like pushing the needle through the back and then the front and the back and the front all the way around. Until you get to the end and you have 2 pieces of string here. And you see it like gathered the edge of the fabric for you. And now I'm stuffing it with that polyfill. And I'm going to take those 2 strings and I'm going to put some more filling in first, I guess. Take those 2 strings, pull them together so that it closes up that hole. And then you're just going to tie them into a few knots. And you'll see why you need all 6 strands here in just a second. So I'm pulling it. And the thread breaks. So then I have to start over. And this time I used all 6 strands of that embroidery thread. And so then I just pull it, I tie a knot, and then cut off the excess. And now I have this fur fabric that I got from Walmart. And I am cutting about a 10 by 10 inch square here. But I think you should probably do 10 by 8, and you'll see why. I say that too. But then you're just cutting, you're trying to use your scissors and just cut just along the back. Don't cut all the way through. Just try to just cut the back side and don't cut through the fur. I hope that makes sense. Because you want to have, when you cut the bottom here, you'll see, you want like the fur to look like long and shaggy and not like a straight line, I guess. I'm really bad at this. So now I'm just taking that beard that I made and I place it on the cone where I want it, and then I just put some hot glue along the front there and press it down, and then I'm just putting some more hot glue along the rest of the top of the beard just to glue that beard on. So now he has a beard, and now I'm just putting the hat on so that I can figure out where I want to place my nose. So now I'm like, okay, I like the nose here. So now I'm taking, I'm trying to brush away the extra fur so that I could get down to the bottom of that fabric because it sticks better. And then I put some hot glue and then I just shove that ornament on there, that nose. And then I'm just putting more glue until I feel like it's stuck good. And now I'm figuring out the placement of my ears, where I want my ears. And then I have this little washable fabric pen, and I'm just marking lines where I want the ears to go. I make the lines a little bit thinner than the actual width of the bottom of the ears. Then we're just going to take our scissors and we're just going to cut a little hole along those lines. Like I said, the hole is slightly skinnier than the width of the bottom of the ears. And then we're just going to shove the bottom of those ears through that fabric. And the fabric like folds up on it a bit so that you can't see that rough edge. I'm putting it on my gnome and the ears just fall right off. Put the ears back on. And then what am I doing here? Placing my ears. Okay. Now we're going to put some hot glue along the edge of that fabric in the ear so we can stick them together in the front on both sides. And now we're going to flip the hat to the back side so that we can glue the back of that hole to the back of the ear. And now we're going to put our hat back on with the ears, and you can see the ears, they don't want to stand up. They just fall forward. But we're going to figure that out. Okay, so first we're going to lift it up, and I start to put glue, but I think I should probably cut off some of that excess fur so that I can get down to the bottom of the fabric so it'll stick better. So I'm cutting off a little bit of that excess fur. And then we're going to put some glue down, and then we're going to stick the back side of that ear to the gnome's body. And then we're doing the same thing on the other side, cutting away some of that extra fur so we can get to the back side of the fabric. And then we're going to put some glue behind the ear and push it together. And now they're sticking up a little better, but they're still a little floppy. So now we're going to put some hot glue along the back of that ear, and then we're just going to stick the ear against the hat. And then I decide there's still a little, oh no, skip this part. Don't do this part. Don't glue the back of the hat down. You'll see why later. Okay, now we're going to put a little bit more glue because they're still a little floppy. So I put a little more glue a little higher up so they can stand up the way I want them to. Okay, now we're happy with that. Now we're placing our feet where we want them. And I decided the beard is too long. That's why I said I would probably do 10 by 8 inch and not 10 by 10. So I'm just cutting off a little more of that beard to make room for his feet. If you make the beard shorter to begin with, you won't have to do this part, or if you put the beard higher up underneath the hat, that would also work. So now I'm putting the feet down and just putting a bunch of glue on the back of his foot and sticking it to the body. Oh, I got some glue on his beard. Now I'm trying to figure things out here. And I decide, oh shoot, I glue more of his feet down so they're stuck better. And now I decide that his beard is still a little bit too long. So I'm going to cut off a little bit more. I probably, I don't know, probably cut off about an inch or inch and a half of the beard from the bottom so that it fits better around his feet. And now we're going to glue his little tail on. Just put a bunch of glue on the back of his tail. Just push it on there. And now we're going to take this leftover piece of the baby blanket from when we were wrapping the body. And I determined, this is for the arms, I determined the size just based on what I had left over from my scrap of fabric. So these ended up being about 3.5 inches wide by about 9 inches long. And then I also had some leftover felt, and I did that 2.5 inches wide by 9 inches long. And now I have this, I think it's 12 gauge wire that I got from Walmart a long time ago. And I cut 2 9-inch pieces of the wire. And now I'm just going to run a line of 'hot glue along the edge of that felt Got my finger protectors this time because I burnt myself. Put a line of glue along the edge of that felt. And then we are just going to roll the wire into that felt. And then when we get to the edge, we're going to put another line of hot glue along that edge. And we're just going to roll it closed. And now we're going to put a line of hot glue along the edge of this scrap piece of baby blanket. And then we're going to roll it in half and stick the two edges together. Hot dog style, I guess what you call it. And now we're going to turn these inside out, or right side out, I should say. And now we're just going to take that piece of wire wrapped felt and we're going to tuck it inside of this baby blanket. And then we're going to take some polyfill and we're going to stuff it around the piece of wire wrapped felt. But leave about 2 inches on one end unstuffed. And then you just play with it and work all the lumps out so it doesn't look all lumpy. And now we have our 2 arms, and then we're just going to bend them so he has a little elbow, and then tuck it up inside his hat so we can figure out the placement. And now I made this little shape here, and it wasn't exactly, I don't know, the same on both sides. So I folded in half, and I cut along the one side so that both sides match up. And then I traced it onto a piece of chamois, and then I cut out 2 pieces, and then I glued the 2 pieces together, which I forgot to get footage of, and then I folded over the edge of the bottom, and then I put a line of hot glue around that so that it had a clean finished edge. And now I'm turning it right side out, and then I'm stuffing it with some polyfill. And I'm stuffing the other one. Now we're just going to take some more embroidery thread and our little needle, and we are going to do the same thing we did with the bunny feet, where you poke the needle, I'm getting ahead of myself here, poke the needle through the back to the front, then over the top, and then back through the back again to the front, and then over the top again, and then back through the back about 3 times. And you pull it tight and it forms a little like finger on his paw, I guess, what you would call it. And then we just put our needle through the back of that thread on the back side, form a loop, then string our string through it to pull it tight and form a knot. And I just do that about 3 times. And then I did this 3 times so that he's got 4 little fingers, if you can see. So I did it in like 3 different spots so that he's got, so it forms 4 little fingers on his paw, if that makes sense. Now I'm just taking his arm off of his body, and I'm going to take my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to stick some glue inside of the little paw glove along the, inside the glove along the arm, so that we can stick the glove to the arm, and just do that on all areas so it's stuck down along the bottom, along the other side, and along the top, so that his paw is stuck on good onto his arm. And then I do that with the other side. And then I have this egg that I got from the Dollar Tree. But first we're going to stick his arms down. See, this is why don't glue the back of the hat down until after you put the arms on, but I wasn't sure he was going to have arms. That's why I glued the back of his hat down. But don't do that. Wait until you're all done putting the arms on, then glue the back of the hat down. So I'm just trying to get some glue up under his arm to stick his arm down there so it's stuck to his body good. And then I'm trying to figure out placement of the egg with his other arm before I glue his other arm down. And then I just pull up his arm because it's bendable. It would have been a lot easier to glue his arms down if the back of that hat was not glued down already. And then I'm just putting some glue down, and then I just smash his arm down, stick it to his body. And it wasn't stuck good enough, so I'm putting a little bit more glue so it's stuck on there real good. And then we're going to put a little line of glue along the top of his arm so we can stick his hat down to his arm. And we do that on both sides. And now I'm just forming a little mustache on him underneath his nose. Now we're going to place his egg in his hands, and then we're just going to put some glue on one side of the egg, squash his hand to it, and then put some glue on the other side and squash his other hand to it. Fix his beard a little bit. Fix his mustache a little bit. And he's done! How cute is he? He is so stinking cute, guys. I love this little thing. He is just, I mean, not little thing. He's big. He's 18 inches tall. We were able to make this giant gnome using basically all Dollar Tree products. What do you guys think? Isn't he awesome? I think he is just too stinking cute. I have to give credit for the idea for this Easter Bunny gnome to my husband. We were at the Dollar Tree and I was telling him how people on YouTube like to see crafting videos using Dollar Tree items. Like you take one or two Dollar Tree items, put them together and make it into something else. So of course he has to tease me and he's grabbing random items off the shelf. And he's like, look, you put this with this and now you have this. So then he grabs one of those wire wreath forms that looks like a cone, like a giant cone, off the shelf, and he's all, look, it's a gnome. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is a really good idea, actually. And so since Easter was the next holiday coming up, I decided he's going to be an Easter Bunny gnome. And that's how I came up with the idea for him. Inch gnome, Easter Bunny gnome, from Dollar Tree products. I made this little guy. Little guy. He's a big guy. Okay. Where do I look? Do I look there? There. What? I don't even know what you're saying. Don't make it sound. So I actually have to give credit for the what the home. What? I don't know. Do you know? No.